you are in the Eastern Caribbean and around the world, welcome. This is ECCB Digital Dialogues, a special public engagement series designed for you as we navigate this pandemic together. Since June, when we started this series, we've covered several topics, and in fact, today is our 10th edition of ECCB Digital Dialogues. Over the last few months, we've covered digital currency, tourism, connectivity, food security, and faith. Today, our feature will be pandemic and digital transformation. As our region crafts a regional response to this pandemic, only 2 weeks ago, the Monetary Council, the highest decision-making body of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, approved a program of action for recovery, resilience, and transformation as part of our response to dealing with this pandemic. I'm sure you can all agree with me that connectivity and digital tools have been a lifeline in this pandemic. If you think about it, we've used these tools for work, for school, for worship, for shopping, and so many other events and activities in daily life. And I suppose the question could be asked, where would we have been without connectivity and those digital tools? But even as we celebrate the use of these tools as a bulwark of resilience in this period, I think we also readily must acknowledge that this pandemic has in fact laid bare the digital divide. Those who are connected and those who are not. And perhaps we've seen it most obviously, most glaringly in education. So what are the challenges with digital transformation? What are the opportunities? How do we as a region use this moment to take our development to the next level and continue to build resilience and ultimately to transform our region? Well, these are some of the questions we hope to cover in the next hour and a half. We have a wonderful panel lined up to assist us with that. First, I'd like to recognize and welcome the distinguished Director General of the OECS Commission, Dr. Didicus Jules. Dr. Jules is a household name in our region. He has headed the Secretariat of the Commission for the last, I think, 7 years or so. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And of course, before that, he is well known as an education specialist in our region. He needs no further introduction. Dr. Jules, welcome, and just greet us this morning.
Yep, thank you very much, Governor.
Good. Thanks for joining us. Great to have you on board. And now I'd like to invite Tahseen Syed. Tahseen, as I will call her for short, is the Director for the Caribbean, except for Haiti, at the World Bank. Tahseen is a very committed fighter for our region at the World Bank. We're really pleased to have her as a partner before the pandemic and now in the pandemic. And we're grateful that she has consented to join us today. And we'll hear more about what the World Bank is doing to support us in the area of digital transformation. Tahseen, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Governor, and thank you. It's a pleasure to join this great panel and to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I know it's a little earlier where you are, so thanks for making that special effort as well. Appreciate that. And then our third and final panelist is in fact Mr. Andrew Millet, Managing Director of Ektel, the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. Mr. Millet is a telecoms professional for almost 30 years. He joined the Ektel, the authority, in 2014 and has been its Managing Director since 2017. Mr. Millet, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Governor. Thanks very much for this invitation and to be part of this good and distinguished panelists.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we're really looking forward to this conversation. So for those of you who are new, or those of you, just a quick refresher, we do these dialogues in 3 segments. In the first segment, I will pose some questions to the panel and invite their comments. Second segment will be a poll where we actually give you some questions and we ask you to respond. Today, I think we have 3 questions lined up for you. And then the third and final segment, which is typically the longest, is our Q&A segment, where we will actually take your questions in the Q&A box. We also have a colleague who's monitoring Facebook and will send those questions through, and we try to take as many as we can in the time that we have. So with that, I want to again welcome all of you and let us start the dialogue. Let us get into the first segment. So the pandemic has affected every facet of our lives, and there's no question about that. And I've already alluded to the importance of digital tools and connectivity in this period. Now, I would like to ask Dr. Jules this question. Dr. Jules, what is your vision for digital transformation in our region, and why is this transformation critical to the advancement of our economies and societies? Dr.
Yes, thank you, Governor. The OECS has always had the ambition of moving to to engage in digital transformation as an important lever to make us more competitive in the global economy, and also to transform the provision of government services to our people and to accelerate the harmonization of literally everything across the OECS footprint. We have been speaking about this in the Caribbean in general for the last 20 years or so, and the progress has been slow at times. It's been, 1 step forward, 2 steps backward. There have been objective constraints such as the availability and the ubiquity of bandwidth across our footprints. And of course, the engagement of the key players have really been a critical impediment in this. Nevertheless, with COVID now, what we have had to jump quickly on that digitization, that digital transformation bandwagon as quickly as possible. And in fact, what we failed to do in 20 years, we have actually done in 2 months. And the World Bank has been a great player in this. I'm happy to see that Mr. Millet of Ektel is on board, because Ektel is critical to the further liberalization of bandwidth. I often say that bandwidth is oxygen, and that is the backbone on which we are going to do this transformation. The ECCB has played a critical role, and I want to pause here quickly to acknowledge something that I think is a very big secret in our region. Everyone or most people know that you've launched the digital EC dollar, but what is not known is that the ECCB is the first central bank in the world to launch this. And at the time you engage in this process, Governor, it was something that other central banks worldwide were shying away from. So the courage and the determination speaks for itself. And I hope it is that ambition that can drive us now to move ahead with that level of alacrity and progress to position the OECS as an example of an integration movement which has been accelerated through the use of digital transformation approaches and methodologies and technologies to take us where we need to go.
Thank you, Dr. Jules. So we are about to launch. We haven't formally launched, and the reason why we delayed is because of the pandemic. But I thank you for your kind words. The truth is that today, digital currency is now in the mainstream, and many central banks are talking about it, are actually planning to do it. When we started this journey 2 years ago, some people were looking at it with skepticism. Today, and I don't want to take any credit for that. We can't. I think while we did what we have to do, I think Libra is what really focused the minds and got many of the major central banks to really begin to take digital currency more seriously. And I'll just say this before we move on. One of the reasons why we have pressed on this idea of digital currency and the D-Cash is because we believe that as part of digitizing our economies and our societies, the currency is an important mover or lever in that regard. And so there's been a very strategic thinking around why we should pursue it, in addition to the key pain points, such as the costs of payments, the speed of payments, financial exclusion, and some of the other key issues that we need to address in our region. You got me excited about this, but you'll have more to say perhaps later. So let me ask Andrew. Thank you, Dr. Jules. So let me ask Mr. Millet. Andrew, as I may refer to him sometimes, we go back way back, but I'd like to now pose this question to him. What role has the telecommunications industry played in supporting the surge in demand for connectivity in the COVID-19 environment? And what are some of the infrastructural challenges inhibiting our region's ability to adapt even more quickly and fully to this pandemic? Mr. Millet.
Thanks, Governor, for this question. Firstly, let me just say electronic communication networks continue to be a critical enabler of connectivity for businesses, government, and societies to keep connected. So at the onset of this pandemic, what we saw, people were asked to work from home. So there was a shift in the demand for bandwidth. It moved from businesses to residential homes. Yes. So what we saw, people working from home using collaborative tools such as Zoom, Slack, and those things like that for entertainment to use at Netflix. So the demand for bandwidth from homes started to increase. So what did some providers do? One, the international capacity, they had to dramatically increase the international capacity and also domestic capacity. What we saw, just to let you know, the increase in bandwidth was over 40% increase just in a short space of time. So that was very critical for the service providers to act on very quickly. Some did it better than others, but this is I'll address that in a later time. In terms of some providers also installed additional broadband nodes. Government asked for zero rating of sites, so that was done, so that people without credit were able to get to government sites. Some providers actually offered online study platforms and also the suspended disconnection of services, which was great during that time. In terms, apart from the service providers, Governor, the regulatory system also took part in that we used this universal service funds to help in terms of improving and increasing the number of Wi-Fi hotspots, providing funds for access devices, and even providing affordable internet services. So all in all, in terms of the service providers, there was some work done to look at the increase, but we'll talk about later. The quality of service still remains a big issue. With respect to infrastructure challenges, I will say there are 5 major infrastructure challenges. The first one is really international capacity. And the Director General did mention to that. We need to significantly increase our international capacity using either submarine fibers or even satellites. I've been looking at some tests that's going on by SpaceX in the US, where from small satellite dishes, you're getting over 150 megs at homes right now. So this is something we know that we will have to look for in the future. Secondly, apart from the international capacity, we have to look at the geographic areas that are underserved in some of these areas and some of the islands. We saw a case in Dominica just recently. This may be as a result of hurricanes, but it's something that we need to tackle. All areas must be served by a good telecommunications infrastructure. Also, we have to look at, thirdly, at the network infrastructure. We have to move away from a lot of the copper, the legacy networks, and move to greater use of fiber optics, not just to the curb, but directly to the home. So we need that sort of development within the islands to increase the quality of service. The quality of service is something that really has to be improved very, very soon. And apart from all of those infrastructure things, Governor, 2 critical things we have to talk about is affordability of service and the affordability of devices. To achieve universal access, we need affordable services and devices to ensure that we have the whole population properly connected.
Right. So thank you very much, Andrew, for that, because I mean, this is a very important issue. We need to have every individual, business or government must have access to high-speed broadband connectivity, and high-speed and reliable, and it must be affordable. And what you've pointed out there about cost and reliability are important issues. as I understand it, about 40% of our people do not have access to broadband connectivity. Some studies say 50%. And we do know that even for those who are connected, the cost is high. In fact, in our region, we have some of the highest costs for broadband in the Western Hemisphere. So we do have to look at these issues and address them frontally in this period. So there are challenges, but I do want to add my voice in commending the providers who responded very swiftly at the outset of the pandemic to make available that extra capacity to allow us to work from home, school from home, church from home, among other things. So there are issues, yes, but I also recognize special effort was made. Having said that, you've already pointed out we have to improve reliability. I think some of us feel if we're going to pay for a service, we must get the quality that we pay for. So if we're paying for speeds, certain speeds, then we must ensure that those speeds are delivered. And I suppose this is partly a regulatory issue as well. So you've opened up some issues which I'm sure will come back up as we continue this conversation, but which touch and concern the experience of people in daily life. As we speak, I mean, since late March, the ECCB, as an example, has been in teleworking mode. Most of our colleagues, myself included, have been working from home. So we've seen the joys and travails of that mode in respect of connectivity. Sometimes it's great, sometimes the connectivity is not so great. And we've had instances where we have to rush people into the campus to meet operational deadlines. Overall, it's worked well, I will say that. But we do see the quality variations at critical times, and that's obviously a concern. And I think many people may be sharing that at home. So thanks for raising those very pertinent issues. Now let me ask, let me turn to the World Bank. And Mr. Head Tassine, I'd like to pose this question to you. In June of this year, the World Bank's board approved the Caribbean Digital Transformation Program. What more could you tell us about this very important project? And why did the World Bank get involved?
Thank you very much, Governor. It's a pleasure indeed to be here in this panel. Let me first say why the World Bank is involved. The World Bank, first of all, we are really humbled and very proud to be your partner and the partner of all the distinguished panelists present over here on this particular project. We are involved because it is a necessity and it was a felt need by all our partners, yourselves, as well as the countries. Why a necessity? I mean, you have spoken a lot on that, as has Dr. Didicus Jules, that countries globally are transitioning and benefiting from the innovation, the efficiency, the effectiveness, the outreach and connectivity that is there because of digital technology. Whether it's citizens' interactions with public services, such as getting licenses or paying taxes, or conducting financial transactions, as you were mentioning, whether it's licenses or other transactions, e-payments, you need the technology. As you said just now, Governor, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a stark reminder of the benefits of digitization. Every moment that we are living and breathing as we are doing right now, it is because of the benefit of digitization, hence the necessity. And in the past few months, countries around the world, which had stronger digital foundations, have really been able to benefit from it far more than countries that had less stronger digital foundations. As you mentioned, there is a divide also globally on this matter. Second reason why the World Bank is involved is because all of you asked us to be involved. It was a felt need of the Caribbean. In May 2019, I wanted to share with all the participants who are listening that really a big thanks to you, Governor, and kudos to you because you were championing this issue and this need for the Caribbean. And the World Bank then convened a conference with the 2.5-day event, actually, with all the Eastern Caribbean partners, countries and regional partners to discuss the interest to move towards concretely towards further actions on looking at this issue in a comprehensive manner. And what was the key outcome of that event? One only. Everyone in the room agreed that Eastern Caribbean countries and the region must sprint towards a digital economy. And why? Because as you mentioned already, that 40% of the Caribbean small states still lack, are lagging actually on this issue, and they lack affordable internet as well, or internet per se. The region also performs below its peers in terms of digitization of public services. Finally, what is the project? I have to share one thing, and I'm very proud of that actually. This is the first World Bank regional digital project. Globally, the World Bank has done lots of digital projects and financing, but this is the first one at regional level, which is looking at various pillars of a digital economy. This Digital Caribbean project, with a financing close to $100 million, aims to increase access to digital services, technologies, skills, and it's not just for the public sector or the private sector or businesses, it's also for individuals and entrepreneurs in the Eastern Caribbean countries. At the moment, 4 countries are participating in this project: Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and St. Lucia. And the project has been actually tailored to meet each country's specific needs. For instance, St. Vincent and the Grenadines wanted to do more on the land-related digitization, so there's going to be more on that front for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Similarly, other countries have their priorities. However, a key aspect is the regional dimension, and I'm so pleased to be here with the 3 key regional players, the ECCB, the OECS Commission, and Ektel, because the regional dimension is the key one also that I'll come to later when we have further conversation today. But the main aspects of this project are supporting access to affordable broadband, supporting regulatory and legal infrastructure to promote the use of digital financial services, which Governor, your ECCB team is leading, moving towards public services online and more digitization of social cash transfers, assisting businesses to adopt digital technologies, provision, very importantly, of tablets and laptops for students who are learning more and more online, especially in the COVID context, and finally, skills and technology adoption to equip individuals and firms with the needed digital skills. At the end, I will say this probably sounds like a lot, and it is. And I'm the one who always tells my team and believes in simplicity and move forward with fewer things. But in this case, it is necessary to look at all these dimensions together. We are also doing singular activities in this domain. For example, there's a Caribbean Regional Infrastructure Program, which has been assisting on undersea cables on digital broadband side. So that too is there. But a project such as this one requires this holistic approach, which I just shared with you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Tessine, for that overview of this project. And I will simply add, when we convened in Washington in May last year, none of us knew or could have foreseen this pandemic. Certainly, we were doing it for the right reasons. We needed to move the region forward in the digital economy, but we were not thinking about a pandemic. I think now that we are in the midst of this pandemic, this project assumes even greater importance. And I'm glad that we're in a position where we essentially are now ready to begin implementation. And we have this lined up. So we're not working on it, we're not negotiating it, we're about to get started. And so with that in mind, and I'd just like to say before I continue, many people have been involved on your end and on our end, meaning our regional partners, and you will hear from them in a minute specifically. But I do want to recognize the ECCB team who worked on this project, including Imran Williams, Karen Williams, among others, who really worked very passionately on this project. We feel it strongly, and we're happy to partner with OECS Commission, Ektel, Impacts, and I think CTU. So let's continue to break it down. You've set the table very nicely there. Such a project requires partnerships. And we have the key institutions, most of them on this panel at this time. And so what I'd like to do is to ask each of you to just speak to your precise role in this project. So Dr. Jules, I'll start with you. and you could just speak to the OECS commissions, the lead, what you will lead on as part of this, and then I'll ask Mr. Millet to comment. So Dr. Jules, over to you.
Yes, Governor. So the main component that the OECS is responsible for is the piece related to digital skills and the sort of general implementation of the digital transformation in the government space. Let me say that for us, this project has come at the right time. As Tassin mentioned, it was conceptualized prior to COVID, so it was kicking in just around the time that COVID hit. So it was the right place to be at the right time. And importantly, what we've done at the Commission, working closely, as you are aware, with your team from ECCB, is to use this digital transformation project as the hook, a point of convergence of all of our other initiatives related to digital transformation in the OECS, and as a mechanism to accelerate the regional integration effort. So to give some quick examples, aside from the components already described by Tassin in relation to the World Bank project, because we're using it as a point of convergence, we've added on to that other projects that we have in progress. So for example, there's a project on strengthening the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem in the OECS that we are doing with an entity like Compete Caribbean. We are also engaged with UNICEF on what is called the GIGA project, and the OECS is one of 3 regions in the world where this project is being rolled out. We started off by mapping all schools across the OECS on a geographic information system. We've mapped the extent of the bandwidth that they have available, and we are now going to move to the next stage of aggregating all of the demand for initially for education, but ultimately for public service bandwidth across the entire footprint of the OECS, and going to tender, right, in what we hope with the partnership of Ektel will be a freshly liberalized environment to get the best services available at the best prices to serve the public, the learning and so on. And we've also been working on an OECS learning hub together with ministries of education that would see us really converging, having a point of convergence for online learning. And of course, there are many providers in that space. Just recently with our SDM, one of the winning pitches in the business innovation activity was something called Project Jaguar, that in fact really provides a space for not just for learning for schools, but for all kinds of skills training, public sector upgrading, professional development in that space. And then we have another project with the World Bank, which is a World Bank health project, which has a significant digitization component. In fact, this afternoon, I'm due to have some meetings with some medical doctors in the private health sector to discuss the digitization of health, because there are huge opportunities there. Imagine when COVID hit, you'll recall many of our doctors shut their offices because there was such a risk that they could not afford to be open and have a patient walk in who has COVID. Who was able to do their consultations remotely was able to do that. But now with things like the iWatch, it is very possible for your vitals to be monitored by your doctor. So we entered into a whole new space of digital health provision that in fact will be even more cost effective than what we face now. We have a knowledge exchange, innovation and exchange project with a global partnership for education. And these are just some examples of how we've using the World Bank project as that convergence point to bring all of these together in an ecosystem aimed at the integrated transformation of what we do on the regional integration front, the harmonization of initiatives, bringing islands to work closer together and achieving great efficiencies of operation as well as efficiencies of cost.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Jules. So it's a big and ambitious agenda, but it's an important moment, as you said, for the point for conversion. So thanks for that. I'd just like to add, I know one of the things that you're covering as well is the area of skills. And only last week, in fact, we met with your team and our team and Dr. Neil to talk about the setting up of the OECS Robotics Association, just to get the young people, you know, they're already excited, but to help them organize themselves to build those skills, to support STEM careers, and to really ensure that we have a cadre of young people who can really benefit from the digital economy. Because one of the things that I think we're concerned about is, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Quickly to your point on that, Governor, tomorrow we have a meeting of the ministers responsible for tertiary education, who are usually our ministers of education,
yes,
together with the governors, the board of governor chairpersons and the presidents or heads of the tertiary institutions to look
right.
exactly at that question, not just the robotics thing, but also how do we now, in this age of remote learning, move all of our community colleges within a converged space to offer that new modality and to focus on the critical skills, because jobs are also being transformed, to offer those critical skills with a whole cohort of learners now who are at work, who are in the workplace as well as in school, who are out of school, for seamless learning across the demographic.
Right, very, very good. I'm pleased to hear about that engagement, because I think, you know, we all feel the weight of joblessness, youth unemployment, very, very significantly in our region. And we really feel that digital transformation offers real possibilities for jobs for youth. And this is something we really want to latch on to. And not just consume digital goods, but be producers so that we have real digital trade. So I'm excited about that. And I thank you, Dr. Jules, for your leadership in this area. So let me ask Mr. Millet now to speak to what Ektel will bring to this particular partnership under this project.
Okay, thanks, Governor. We have three main components under this project. The first really is to modernize the legal, regulatory, and institutional frameworks governing the telecom sector, and also to provide greater support for competition and affordability. Those are two things that we spoke about earlier on, especially affordability. The second component really is to develop monitoring and enforcement policies and to deploy equipment in each of our Ektel member states, that's Grenada, St. Vincent and Grenadines, St. Lucia, Dominica, and St. Kitts and Nevis, to monitor the quality of fixed and mobile broadband services. And thirdly, is really to develop action plans to enhance the resilience and emergency response capabilities for critical communication infrastructure across the region. So those are the three main components of the projects that will be involved in this Caribbean project.
Right, thanks for that. And of course, I think we're collaborating with OECS on data protection, which is very, very important. And Impacts will be the lead on cybersecurity. And clearly, we all recognize cybersecurity and cyber resilience are critical as we build out this digital economy. And we also know this is not a single country or national enterprise. So you must have some capacity in country, but we all recognize that we also have to build capacity regionally and to ensure that we have the capacity to allow us to help each other, share information, best practices, support each other, and be a backup in the event, say we have an incident and we need response. So there is I just want to stress the cybersecurity resilience portion, because that is very, very key. From the ECCB perspective, Tassine already mentioned, we will play the lead on digital finance, digital financial services. So for example, we are already working on new framework for modernization of the payment system. That obviously is key. The current Payments Act is 2008. We need to have a new legislation in place, and we expect to have a draft ready early, certainly in the first half of 2021, which we can then ask our governments to enact into law. We are also, of course, leading on the digital currency, Dcash, which was already mentioned, and there's some other areas in payments. Now, I mentioned this as well for people in the private sector who are looking to play in this area, looking for opportunities. We believe that as we set out these platforms and put this infrastructure in place, the private sector will have opportunities to bring services, to deliver services, to help build out that digital economy. So this is very, very important for them as well. So thanks for that. And so let me now ask the panelists, perhaps we can turn to Dr. Jules again. Dr. Jules, what is the role of governments in this? So we've talked about our respective organizations and what our roles will be. But could you touch a little bit on what you see as the role of governments in this project? Dr. Jules.
Yeah, Governor, before I take your question, if I may, I think your modesty has sort of shortchanged the ECCB part of this, because what you're doing with the digital currency, for most people, listeners out there, it may sound a bit high-tech and esoteric. But I think what is important to note about these initiatives is what it's going to do for financial inclusion. I think the statistics show that about 70,000 people across the OECS are no longer engaged in banking activities for a variety of reasons, including the new stringent requirements internationally for bank know your customer rules and so on, mean that they literally threw out small customers who were literally unprofitable for doing business with.
That is correct. And I'm not happy about that. But that is the reality.
Exactly. And what the bank is doing now is going to really include everyone in the financial system in a way that the poorest persons can participate. In this COVID period, governments sending cash, making cash remittances to persons who are on the indigent list and so on. All of that can be done digitally without complication. I was in Kenya a few years ago and saw a platform called M-Pesa at work. Kenyan farmers who are barely literate using cheap cell phones are able to do all of their business, sell their crops online, receive the cash payments, market their goods. It's an incredible range of opportunity opening up that does not exclude anyone and actually helps to level the playing field at cheaper costs for the poor to be part of the financial system. So having said that, with respect to your question, our governments have a very important role to play. Government, at the end of the day, the state, is the regulatory mechanism for everything that happens across the board. And that is where we come in as well as a commission through our legal department, working with the attorney generals, with across the region, the legal departments, legal expertise through Ektel as well, to shape the regulatory instruments that will ensure that all of this the architecture, the legal architecture is in place to facilitate the liberalization of telecommunications, so get better competition, a more level playing field, allowing new entrants to come into this digital space, encouraging, as was mentioned earlier, our own best minds, young people to develop, produce their own products. We cannot always be consumers of other people's products, buying subscriptions to software. We have the capacity in the region to do amazing things in software. Just last night, I had a 2-hour-long conversation with Gregory Abed with some of the work that he's doing in the digital space. So there are incredible opportunities, and government's role in this is to unlock the doors that have formerly been locked, to create the mechanisms at the state level that will create a level playing field, allow for opportunity for bright young minds to enter into that digital space and become global in their ambitions. Right.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I'll just add that when the governments get more involved, not only do they become more efficient, not only do we reduce the scope for corruption, for example, for services, where you have to, people have, as we would say in the region, you have to beg and plead and grease hand to get services. Those services are available online, and you're a citizen, you're a resident, you get it. But also it builds digital trust, because increasingly, more and more our people need to be comfortable with these tools. And I think the pandemic has presented us with a gift, in a sense, because we've all had to use them, whether ready or not. We've had no choice but to really get involved with that. So that is very, very important as we build out the digital economy, building digital trust. And one of the things that we will need to do in this process is to have unique digital identifiers to allow us both to have people have confidence about the security of using the digital platforms, but also from a cybersecurity perspective. And we may perhaps pick that up later on as we go along. But let me pose a final question in this segment to Tahseen. Ms. Syed, could you just tell us where the project is at right now? Where are we?
Where the project is at right now, it is at the point of governor takeoff. And why I say that, because as you know, it was approved in about June, end of June, which is about 4 months ago. And it's now on with various country governments. They are doing their own processes to make it what we call legally effective. Effectiveness really means that the project internal approvals are provided by the country governments and then it moves forward. However, having said that, I should mention to and share with the audience and the participants here that a lot of preparatory work is already happening with yourselves, all the partners who are present today in this panel, but also with country governments, such as critical terms of reference on key procurements and moving forward so that as soon as it becomes effective, immediately the processes where procurement is required, that is initiated, where technical assistance is required, that's already happening. And we are also expecting that the project implementation teams, which will be in all the 4 countries, plus at the regional level, will be fully staffed very soon in the coming several weeks, I would say within this calendar year. And on that point, I should also mention, as you did, Governor, to acknowledge the World Bank team, which has been really working extremely closely with all of you here to make the project happen in a very short period of time. And I do want to give a shout out to Casey Torgerson, Oliver Maseretti, Himmat Singh, and Dennis Boskovsky, who's our key senior country officer, who've been really hugely committed to this project. One of the key advantages of the implementation agreements for this project is that it facilitates parallel implementation processes across the countries as well as the regional entities. So which means that there is, of course, the big challenge of coordination and making sure that things are happening in parallel. So, it really is all of us working together to make sure that the critical results that this project is seeking to accomplish, those results happen as planned. And for the purposes of your participants and viewers, I should mention that more detailed information about the project is available on the websites, your website, Governor, and the OECS, I'm sure as well, but most certainly on the World Bank's website, which includes contact details of individuals, their email addresses, and also there's information about forthcoming procurement activities as well, which would be financed under this project. Finally, apart from the regional level, the ministries of finance in the 4 countries, the 4 participating countries and their chief information officers are really the key persons who can also provide country-specific information. Before I end, I do want to say that I mentioned the results. What are the results that collectively we are hoping would be accomplished in the coming years? One is, of course, the very important point about increasing internet penetration. The other is the access to, and that is something, Governor, you and I are deeply, deeply committed to, on e-money accounts, e-payment system. As you said, Dr. Didicus Jules, I mean, Kenya is at the income level is not a middle income country, but 73% of the individuals above 15 years of age have mobile money account. That's what we are hoping for also in the Caribbean. And most importantly, that the rise in the number of individuals who use digital skills for jobs, as you mentioned. So there are these kind of indicators that we would like together to see really blossoming in the coming years with support from this project and also all the parallel activities that are being undertaken already by the regional bodies and the countries. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tahseen. And I do want to add my voice in thanking your team, KC, Dennis, Oliver, and others who have been very, very supportive, very involved. Appreciate them all. So there we have it. We have actually come to the end of our first segment. We're just getting started, but time goes quickly. So I'd like to thank the panel for their initial responses. We're now going to move to our second segment, which is the poll. We have 3 questions lined up for you today. While we are doing that, I would just like to remind us of the persons who are partnering with us today in terms of the radio stations. We have in live at the moment, Montserrat ZJB Radio. In St. Christopher and Nevis, we have Freedom FM 106.5 and Win FM 98.9. St. Lucia, we have WVent 93.5, 94.7, and Rhythm FM. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we have Praise FM, Nice Radio, and We FM. In Anguilla, Radio Anguilla, Class FM. In Antigua and Barbuda, ABS Radio and Nice FM Radio. In Commonwealth of Dominica, DBS Radio, Q95. And in Grenada, Classic FM 105.5 and Sister Eyes 92.9. I also indicated earlier, there will be a broadcast of this event tonight in Anguilla on Class FM at 8 p.m., in Dominica on Carry FM at 8 p.m., in St. Christopher and Nevis, ZIZ Television tonight at 8 p.m., and tomorrow morning, Vaughan Radio. Vaughan is in Nevis, Vaughan Radio at 8 a.m. Thank you again to our broadcast partners. We appreciate your coming on board to bring this episode to all of our people, citizens, residents, and friends of our region. And so with that, let us now go to our poll. Today we have 3 questions lined up for you. I'd like to thank our colleague, Ayodele Roach, who is on the Mentimeter today. For those of you who are new to this, let me tell you how it works. Very simple. You put into your device www.menti.com. www.menti.com. Once you do that, you need a code. And the code today is 7084217. 7084217. So once you put your Mentimeter, you put the code in, the questions will begin to appear. So anybody can do that. You can do that from once you have a device, whether you are listening by radio or by television or via Facebook, you can do that. So let me repeat. There are 3 questions in our poll. We'd like you to go to the poll. www.menti.com. www.menti.com. That's what you put in. That's the access, and then you need a code. 7084217. Let me repeat again. The code today, 7084217. Those of you who are regulars, you know how this works, probably already in. But for those who are new, welcome. Happy to have you on board today. This is how it works. So here's the first question. How positioned were societies to quickly adapt to the new mode of operating occasioned by the pandemic? How well positioned were our societies to quickly adapt to the new mode of operating occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic? And I want to, while that question is being answered, just for those of you who are joining us, you are listening to ECCB Digital Dialogues, a special public engagement series designed for you as we navigate this pandemic together. Today, our feature is Pandemic and Digital Transformation. And our panelists are Dr. Didicus Jules, Director General of the OECS Commission, Ms. Tassin Syed, Director for the Caribbean at the World Bank, and Mr. Andrew Millet, Managing Director of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority. So those are our panelists, and of course, yours truly, Timothy Antoine, ECCB Governor. Question number 1, how well positioned were societies to quickly adapt to the new mode of operating occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic? That's the first question. We'll give you 30 seconds. And let me just repeat, for those of you who are new to this, we have a little fun every time with this. www.menti.com, that's the access. and then you need a code. The code is 7084217. One of the things we like about this poll is that you get real-time results. You don't have to wait for results. There are places who are waiting for results. We don't wait for results here. We get these results in real time. That is the benefit of a digital economy. No need for delay, no suspicion around delay. You get your results real time. And I can also tell you, this is a tool that we use in the central bank all the time, our central bank. So if we have a staff poll, we want to check staff views on a particular matter, we want to make a decision, we want to canvass the views of staff on anything. Practically, we use this poll and we're able to, in our town halls, for example, and in quick time, we can get a pulse and we can make a decision. So we've used it, to do a lot of things in the last year or so. So it's something we're sharing with you. It's something we use regularly in the bank. So that's the end of question 1. And what we see is that 66% of persons who responded indicated that they found that we were reasonably well positioned. Actually, let me just backtrack on that. What we saw is that the pandemic exposed serious infrastructure gaps and inequitable access to connectivity. 2/3 of you said that, and I think we can all agree with that assessment. 30% said we had the basics. So just under a third said we had the basics. And then 4% said we were very well prepared. I think the takeaway from this is that we have a lot of work to do. So while we're managing, it's not optimal. We need to do better, we need to do more. And the project that we've been discussing will help us in that regard. So that's question number 1. Let's move to question number 2. Question number 2 says, in which area would you like the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project to make its greatest impact on our region? And there are 4 responses. A, connectivity. B, digital skills. C, cybersecurity. And D, digital trade. So here's the question. In which area, that's your view, in which area do you think or would you like to see this project, the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, have the greatest impact on our region? Is it connectivity, digital skills, cybersecurity, or digital trade? Those are the 4 options available for this question. And again, if you're just joining us, you are listening to ECCB Digital Dialogues. Our focus today, pandemic and digital transformation. We are in our second segment, which is our poll, where we give you a chance to weigh in. And by the way, we take this poll seriously. We actually use those as part of our research. It's a quick survey. It helps us to, when we're thinking about policy and what advice we will give to our governments, we include them in our reports as a sample of what we're hearing from the region. So your voice matters, your vote counts. And we actually use this feedback in our work. So it's very useful for us as well. I want to just make that point. So 30 seconds on the second question. In which area would you like to see this project have its biggest impact? Is it connectivity, digital skills, cybersecurity, or digital trade? Final 20 seconds before we move to our third and final question. Final 20 seconds. And so we will now close that question. And what we will see is that 39%, 40% just got in. 40%, I thought that was a mail-in ballot, but it came in just in time. Just having a little fun now. 40% of our respondees have said connectivity. 40%. So that's the single biggest response. This project, they want to see its biggest impact in connectivity. 31% said digital trade. Digital trade, jobs, income, opportunities for our people, including our youth. 31% of you said digital trade. 26% said digital skills. 26% said digital skills. And 3% said cyber security. So let me repeat very quickly. 40% said connectivity, 31% said digital trade, 26% said digital skills, and 3% said cyber security. Here's the good news. This project will cover all 4. But of course, depending on where you sit and where you're at, certain components will mean more to you. But those are all important as we build out the digital economy. Thank you for those responses. Question number 3, our third and final question is, in which of the following areas would you most like to see increased use of digital technologies? You have 3 options. In which of these 3 areas would you most like to see increased use of digital technologies? 1, government services. 2, financial services. 3, education. Those are the 3 options. In which area would you most like to see increased use of digital technologies? 1, government services. 2, financial services. 3, education. We give you a final 30 seconds on this. I see it's lighting up. People are responding. And we thank you, those of you who joined and are able to respond. Now remember, whether you're in the Zoom room or not, you can respond to this. So www.menti.com, the code is 7084217. So if you're on Facebook and you have a device, you can actually be part of this. If you're home listening to radio and you have a device, you can be part of this. If you're in front of your television and you have a device, of course, the key in all of this is you got to have connectivity. Once you have connectivity, you can actually be part of this poll. Final 20 seconds. Final 20 seconds. Final 20 seconds, and then we will move to our third and final segment. Okay, so there we have it. 54% of those who responded, or respondents, said 55% government services. So there is a demand that the governments use digital technology to make public services more accessible, faster, cheaper, less queuing up for services. And in these COVID times, we have to avoid queuing up. Physical distancing is required. So the more we can use the platforms, the more we can take care of our distance. And of course, we also have to wear our mask and wash our hands. Those are critical elements of our response until the vaccine comes. 24% says financial services, 21% education. So let me repeat this final question. 55% said government services is the area that they'd most like to see the use of digital technologies. 24% said financial services, 21% said education. So thank you for that. If we had given you options, we could have said food security, we could have said health. Dr. Jules spoke earlier to telemedicine, which is going to allow us to get faster care, better care, and cheaper. Because instead of having doctors looking at certain things, they can have these things monitored due to technology, and then you use the doctors to treat and to deal with the more serious matters. The doctors can use the technology with the patient to actually monitor and to give feedback. That's telemedicine. So when we talk about digital transformation, we are not just speaking about coding, robotics, all those are very good. We're also speaking about real people, real jobs in our communities, whether you're in agriculture, you're in health, you're in government, the fisherman who must be able to fish, catch his fish, and upload it. So by the time he hits land, he already has a sale. All of those are uses of digitization. And of course, our currency. So remember, this is economy-wide, society-wide, and you have a part to play in this regard. So thank you very much for your responses. And now I'd like to invite our panel back to our third and final segment. We have about 25 minutes. Let's get to our questions and let's see how many we can cover. So the first question I see is, how is the ECCB planning to handle cross-border payments with the EC digital dollar? Will the bank be connecting other digital currencies, such as the sand dollar in the Bahamas? So the first focus of our EC digital currency, Dcash, as we call it, Dcash means digital cash, will be cross-border within the currency union. We have 8 countries in the currency union, half of them are multiple island countries, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and Grenadines, Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique, Antigua and Barbuda. So our focus at this moment is on cross-border within our currency union. Once we are able to get that up and running and perfect that, we are open to collaborate with other countries, central banks in our region. We've had requests or inquiries from other central banks who would like to partner with us at some point. We are open to that, but we must first take care of our business in the currency union, and then we will pivot to that at some stage. And remember, we're going to run the pilot for 12 months. The first 4 countries we already mentioned, St. Lucia, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Grenada, but we also plan to bring the other 4 countries in the second half of the pilot so that all 8 of our members will have an opportunity to be part of this pilot. So nobody will be left out. I just want to say that. And in case some of you are wondering, well, you heard about 4 countries in the digital transformation. There are other initiatives going on in those countries, for example, St. Kitts and Nevis, but there are benefits at the regional level for all 8 members. When we do data protection, all members will benefit from the data protection. When we do certain skills projects and activities, we will be able to find a way to engage. So I just want to make the point. We see this as a currency union-wide initiative, notwithstanding that, of course, 4 members specifically went to the World Bank and sought the funding to support this project. Well, we're thinking regionally, so we don't want to leave anybody behind. Some countries actually are funding some of this themselves, like St. Kitts and Nevis, or they will be seeking support to be able to do some of these things as well. But whatever, as I say all the time at the Central Bank, whatever we have, you have. We work for you. So if we ECCB delivers something, it's going to be for everybody. OECS the same thing, Ektel the same thing, even though there are 5 members. We think regionally when we do these things. All right, let's move on.
Governor,
yes, please come in, DG. Please come in.
A question that I've been asked that perhaps you best able to answer. A lot of people hearing of the Dcash have been asking, how do they get personally involved? Like, how do they get access to it? How do they participate in it? Not just merchants, but ordinary consumers and persons in the street.
Right. So what is happening right now is that we are onboarding first of all, our financial institutions, the partnering banks and credit unions in this first phase. And then our merchants, which would be supermarkets, utility companies, gas stations, and so on. And then we have agents in our countries. Now, we're offering 2 models. So there is a model where it's registered wallet, which means if I have a bank account or credit union account, I can use my financial institution and they can onboard me. And the thing about that opportunity or that wallet option is that you will have higher levels because they already know you. All the AML CFT stuff is already in place. They know the profile. So if I am moving $5,000 every month, they know that. So when I transact in Dcash, I can use 5,000, no issues. AML CFT is already in place. Now, if you don't have a bank account, remember, we don't want to leave you out. So you will be in what we call a value-based wallet. There you will need to go to an agent, you will be registered, and you will get a limit initially of around $2,700, which is 1,000 US, that you can transact in. So in this period, we are onboarding our immediate partners, institutions, agents, and merchants. Once we have completed that, your financial institutions, for those of you who have banks, credit unions, will engage you on becoming involved. So your banker will ask you, do you want Dcash? Do you want to be part of this? And they will arrange for you to be part of this. If your bank or credit financial institution is not a partner in this first round, then we will invite you to go to the agents. The agents, we will be doing some advertising. You'll know who the agents are, and you will register with the agents. So we are going to be getting to the public very, very soon. At this moment, we are onboarding. So testing of the app, making sure we onboard, we train, make people ready, and then we will actually bring in, customers will actually be on. We've already, for example, in the central bank, some of our staff have actually gone on and been able to get on, use the app, and get the first download of 100 Dcash, just in this testing phase. But it's going to be rolled out to the wider citizenry very soon. Right, let's move to the next question. What are the strategies to be deployed for education at the grassroots level? Dr. Jules, perhaps you can attempt this one. What are the strategies to be deployed for education at the grassroots level?
Well, we're working with a number of actors, and our work involves not just the commission, but we have working groups, virtual working groups of top expertise from across the ministries of education and the education systems of the OECS. So we have working groups of curriculum people, educational counselors, we have early childhood persons, testing people, and so on. And what we are doing is developing a series of products and mechanisms that would help. We are in the final stages of configuring an OECS learning hub that would give access to learning material and content, as well as tests and audiovisual multimedia material. Following this, that aligns to the CXC syllabi at both CAPE and CSEC. NotesMaster is the engine for that. I also mentioned one of our business pitch winners, the Jaguar, the Jaguar program or device, is going to be rolled out as well. So we are working at multiple levels to deal with the question of content for online learning. We have also looked at the question of protocols from a health perspective, and that is involving both health and education personnel, for safer management and running of schools. And that's a whole story by itself. But equally as well, we're looking at the digital divide, and that takes two forms. I mentioned earlier the GIGA project with UNICEF that is seeking to bring huge broadband to schools so that they can effectively operate. Now, since COVID, the effort there obviously has to go beyond schools to ensure an affordable broadband for the home, but not just working remotely, but learning remotely. And to make that really affordable and easy. And we'll be engaging with our governments on that, because if at the end of the day, the price point is too high, there must be mechanisms by which we can ensure that the poorest, most disadvantaged families do have access at rates that they can afford, or even subsidized rates. Although the principle here is not to, in all the work we do at the Commission in this period, not to overload our governments with costs, because the financial situation is tight for everyone. So these are some of the efforts that we are undertaking. And for us, education is a priority. So as I mentioned, tomorrow we have this meeting with the ministers of higher education to look at what we're going to do about the whole tertiary education sector, and looking at our community colleges being repositioned, not just to continue providing their associate degrees and all of the stuff they've been providing and move that online, but also to provide skills training, globally accepted certification online to everyone who needs it, right? And that's a whole opening of the education. It's a literal revolution in education, because we're talking about learning for all and certification for all. We're also launching, in association with that, and USAID, I have to thank them for coming on board with a pilot, which we're doing for youth at risk, for GIGA, for the online participation in the gig economy. So it's a 5,000 job initiative that we're hoping to launch, which would train young persons and anyone who's unemployed, but initially starting with a pilot with youth at risk, to provide them with the devices and the training so that they can go online and source jobs with things like Fiverr and so on. You can do all kinds of jobs. If you have a good voice, you could do voicing of ads. If you are good at transcription, you can do transcription. If you can do coding, you do coding. So it's a range of opportunities there. In Jamaica, this project has been run already, and there are people making $2,000–3,000 US a month from participation in the gig economy. So what we're doing in education is not isolated to just the students in the education system, but we're also looking at the wider demographic. And we're not just looking at education in a narrow sense, but also how does that intersect with new job opportunities in the evolving job market, especially in the digital realm.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Jules. Let me ask Mr. Millet to come in. And so the question is, based on the 5 challenges you highlighted, what are some of the practical strategies that can be deployed to assist or to overcome these challenges?
Okay, thanks, Yana, for the question. I think one of the things we have to do is really to work with the service providers. And it could not only service providers, but it could be public-private. The CASA project is the typical one, but we need to work with the providers to ensure that...
sorry, Andrew. CASIP, just break that down for listeners.
Right. Yes, the CASIP is a Caribbean Regional Communications Infrastructure Program. And that is a program that is currently in progress for Grenada, St. Vincent and Grenadines, and St. Lucia. And that will provide, again, a lot of connectivity between schools, and it also involves a submarine cable between Grenada and St. Vincent. So that's a very good project that has started to increase the connectivity between the islands. And that's a typical example of a private-public partnership. And so it's really about working with the different stakeholders to increase the international capacity. That is very, very important. And also the local infrastructure. I think the infrastructure has to be improved, not just for COVID times, but in terms of we living in a hurricane area. So you can't have the entire network going down when a hurricane comes. So we need to go underground for certain places. So the network infrastructure has to improve, and we need to improve it and remove, as I said, some of the copper and use more fiber optics, and also increase the quality of service. Quality of service is so important. I mean, we talk about e-learning and those things like that. Now people have exams. You can't afford the service to be going down, So it's become just as important for learning as in businesses. So, so the quality of the service, again, has to be improved. And I think working with the regulatory arm, the government, we need to work together with the providers to ensure that those gaps that were identified are improved very soon, so that we're better able to face the next challenge going forward.
Right. Thank you. So, I mean, I just want to underscore what you said. In these COVID times, copper and coaxial cable, not fit for prime time, not fit for purpose. It has to be fiber optics. So clearly, investments have to be made. We have to work with the private sector. We have to figure out the model in terms of funding and cost recovery. But that is critical. And many of us now feel this thing is a right. We need to treat access to broadband connectivity as a right, not some privilege for those who can afford it. And so if we take that on board, and as we think about the sustainable development goals and so on, which are to be enabled by connectivity, we have to be prepared to provide these services. It cannot be based on what you can afford and who can afford what. Basic broadband connectivity is like electricity in the 21st century. So we, as a region, if we're going to build out a digital economy, we have to have connectivity. We have to have connectivity.
In Sweden, it's a human right, classified as a human right.
Well, yes, and that's an important point, because I think if we take a rights-based approach to this issue, it really forces certain issues. For example, in terms of what we put in the legal framework.
Exactly.
How we deal with the payment system. We have to insist now that certain access has to be provided as a right. And that right has to be basically enshrined in law. Now, of course, there has to be funding mechanisms, because declaring is one thing, but you have to make it available. But that is the mindset our region must have if we're going to build out this digital economy. It has to be seen as a right. So thank you for that intervention. Let's go to another question, perhaps Tassine. Is there any flexibility under the World Bank project to assist clusters within the priority service sectors like healthcare and law offices? Interesting. Who may wish to strengthen their capacity to digitize their businesses. So these are businesses, health, doctors and lawyers, for example, who are the priority areas, who would need some kind of support to help digitization. Any views on that? Tassine, you can comment if you wish, and then I could also ask Dr. Jules if he wants to comment.
Yes, no, I'll comment because there is, and as I was mentioning earlier, that there are several foundations for this particular the digital project, the digital transformation project. But of course, in parallel, the World Bank is also financing, as Dr. Jules mentioned, the regional health project as well as the CARSIP project that Mr. Millet referred to. But in terms of the specific question that is asked, there is no particular pre-selection of which businesses or which enterprises can access support under this project. There is no exclusion of a particular group of businesses or companies. That's what I can say at this point only, because a lot of it will depend on there's an amount of resources allocated for this particular activity to support digital platforms for businesses and for individuals. Essentially, there will be a process by which the selection will be made, and those who fulfill the criteria would clearly be the beneficiaries. That's what I can say at this point, not being able to give you concrete answer whether a law firm or the other business that you mentioned could get access to support for the support or not.
Right, right. I think, Dr. Jules, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Well, to add to what Hasina said, I would refer the questioner to have that conversation with somebody like the IFC, the International Finance Corporation, I think it's called. Part of
yes.
Yeah, because they
private sector arm of the World Bank.
Yeah, it's a part of the World Bank, and they also look at a lot of private sector financing. Now, I must say, with respect to the question of the legal offices, I know the Caribbean Court of Justice was one of the first adopters to move into that area. And significantly, from my perspective, they developed the software in-house within the Caribbean by Caribbean developers to have a complete ecosystem for management of the justice system that filters right down to legal firms and their incorporation in the system. So everything is done electronically. I know the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court is also moving in that direction, but I have a particular concern about the use of our own software rather than, to the point you made earlier, Governor, rather than us being eternal subscribers to other people's software, using our own talent and resources. And in fact, our own software can actually be pushed out in other regions, maybe other small island developing states as well, for utilization there.
Indeed, indeed. I would just add that to the extent that the government is able to provide certain platforms, so whether it's to deal with health records or to deal with property registries, those will help the private sector because they will find that their work is enabled far more efficient in terms of being able to get things done. And I know a number of countries, for example, in St. Kitts and Nevis, there is a project ongoing to deal with the property registry. I think they want to ultimately digitize that. Other countries, St. Vincent and Grenadines under this project, they're looking at their land registry, among other things. Those things will immediately benefit the private sector who work in the area, and of course our citizens who have to transact and who need to be able to do so quickly and far more cost effectively than perhaps they're able to do at this moment. All right. But beyond that, if you need to retrofit your business, you probably need to be speaking to your financial institution, unless the government has a special fund available to do that. All right, let's see if we could take one final question before we go to our final round for closing remarks. Do we have any other questions that we've not touched? I think Andrew covered that. Given the regulatory framework in place in OECS, what are some of the areas for improvement highlighted? I think you touched that earlier, Andrew, in terms of quality, but you can comment if you wish.
Yes, I think I did touch it, but we need to improve, as I said, the international capacity, the local network infrastructure. We need to improve our quality of service. And I said the two critical things too that we need to do is really look at the pricing and access to devices. that is really, really critical in order to get, some of the infrastructure challenges resolved.
Right. Thank you very much. Well, go ahead.
Governor, just one thing. I noticed in one of your questions, cybersecurity came as a low component, but just to let people know, cybersecurity is so important. Without that, without securing our networks, all the transactions we do, the financial transactions and those things, if that becomes unsecure, it will erode confidence in the use of online platforms. So cybersecurity is extremely important, and the work that CARICOM's impacts they're doing is extremely, it's something that we need to focus on and ensure that cybersecurity or networks are secure across the region.
Absolutely.
And the World Bank project does have a significant component which impacts is leading. But let me say quickly too that the issue of cybersecurity is not just a hardware and a process thing. There's also a very strong regulatory dimension to that has to do with rights to privacy and truth speaking online and so on. So we are guided in this instance by the work done, for example, by the European Union with their general protocols on privacy on the internet and ensuring that people do not, promulgate fake news. The OECS Commission has a MOU with Facebook that allows us to in certain situations, address those issues. So for example, with the outbreak of COVID, we gave access to CAFA and engage them through our protocol with Facebook. So if you notice during this period, if you do any search on Facebook and you're within the Caribbean for COVID, you will see the CAFA website come up. So in that way, they are in your face. You don't have to look for CAFA. In situations of crisis, the last hurricane in Bahamas, we also unlocked our arrangement with Facebook to enable the finding of people through Facebook in the Bahamas. So it has been a very useful thing, and we are looking to expand those types of partnerships.
Right. Thank you for that. Let me just say a quick note on the rising incidence of scams in this period. And we've actually put out an advisory on this. So just to touch on Andrew's point, he mentioned cybersecurity, but I want to broaden it now too. Part of our challenge is digital and financial literacy. So that is going to be also part of what we do. ECCB will play a big role in this area to enable and support financial services and financial inclusion. But we have seen in this period people trying to take advantage of the situation with scams. So we've put out advisories and we want to remind the public. Anybody who's running to you now with this special circle that will allow you to put in $500 and bring 3 people and get another $1,500 or whatever and so on, and you have to do it quick before the opportunity arises. No, that's a red flag. Do not put your hard-earned money into that scam. I know people are vulnerable and things are tough, but I just want to warn you. We are taking every effort to try to identify them and to, with security, dismantle them where we can. But our first line of defense is to warn you. When you get approached on this online, please say no. And if you're in doubt, let me suggest to you that you call your national regulator. So in Grenada, that would be GAFIN. In St. Kitts and Nevis, it would be the FSRC. Similarly, in Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent. All through our countries, we have these national regulators. If you're not sure, just call them and ask them. Just tell them, I have this thing in front of me. What do you think? What do you make of it? And they will guide you. But we do not want our people hurt by illicit actors who are trying to take advantage in this period. And like always, there are good things that we can do with the tools, and we are doing them, but you will always find a few people who want to profit illicitly, through illicit means, and we need to be mindful of that. So sorry but I just wanted to just be careful.
Governor,
I don't want you hurt. I don't want you hurt.
A quick takeaway suggestion based on that intervention. Yourselves and us share, as well as Ektel, share our media platform. So it might be helpful if in putting out your next alert on that you provide access to the names and the numbers, the telephone numbers, the contact information for each of the member states of those regulators. Because to the general public, these departments tend to be esoteric. So at least people know exactly who to call, which number to call to find them. And we will work with you to broadcast that on all of our joint media platforms.
Thank you for that offer, Dr. Jules. We will certainly take a note to follow up. And let me again just commend you for the tremendous work you're doing and the website and that platform you had for SDM, the movement and all of those things. Really expression of the digital tools. And so we want to take advantage of that. So thanks for that offer. It's timely and relevant. So we're almost out of time. So what I'd like to do is to ask the panelists to offer their closing remarks. This time, perhaps I could start with you, Tassin.
Thank you so much, Governor. Well, very quickly, I think what I would say is in closing that we've spoken a lot about how important the digital technology has been in the COVID context, but I wanted also to bring us back to the other reality of the small islands and the Eastern Caribbean, which is the challenge of scale and the issue of economic diversification and the dependence on tourism. I think these are challenges that have often are cited as barriers to growth, but we from the World Bank are definitely seeing the opportunities that a coordinated digitization effort can present to the Eastern Caribbean region, to the youth, to the women, and to, of course, private sector as well. And finally, from the World Bank side, we are putting a lot of premium, not just to the country level interventions, but the role of regional bodies and issues like, getting the Relevant Payments Act, the Telecommunication Acts going. So the role of Ektel, your role, ECCB, the OECS on data protection and cybersecurity, we are seeing that as very, very central as the region moves forward on this agenda. Thank you very much for inviting me and the World Bank to be your partner.
Thank you, Tassin. You are an excellent partner. Kudos to you, your leadership, and your team. We appreciate having a friend in the trenches with us at this time. Thank you very, very much. Andrew, Mr. Millet, please.
Okay. Firstly, I'd really like to thank the World Bank for the generous grant of $1.5 million US to undertake those important projects that the regulatory authority has to do. So I really want to thank the World Bank for that. Also, I really like to thank the service providers for stepping up at the onset of the COVID-19. But the fight is not over. We have a lot more to do. We have to increase the resilience of the network. We have to increase the quality of the network. The affordability of broadband is key. Increasing the coverage is also very important. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we'd like to thank them for the work that they have done in order for us to get through this year. And certainly, and last but not least, Governor Antoine, thanks very much for inviting me to this dialogue. And I think you're doing a great job hosting these programs.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. And a stronger Ektel is good for the private sector, all the providers. So we look forward to that. Dr. Jules.
Yeah, well, I think, and there's not much left to be said, but what I want to do is shamelessly use my 2 minutes or my minute to do a pitch, because we've spoken about the digital future and all what it can do. And I want to invite all listeners and viewers to log in, check out our website, the OECS, www.oecs.org, as well as look at our media, any of our social media, because we have an upcoming invitation for everyone. There are two things happening that will show you in real life how that digital future is unfolding. One, we have updated our pharmaceutical pool procurement service to be a pool procurement service, so that we are now looking at anything that governments really need across the OECS. How can we aggregate demand and get the best prices at the best rates to provide to governments? We have already, in the last 30 years that this PPS has been operating, we've done $1 billion worth of business, EC dollars worth of business in medicines for the health sector at average savings of 30%. Now we're moving this to a whole new level with the broader requirements of government. And we are using a platform which, thanks to our colleagues at the World Bank, called EasyBuy. We got $300,000 US from the Global Partnership for Education to secure devices for the education systems to be used in schools, whether it's school kids in this period. And what we did was put that up on the EasyBuy platform. We did due diligence on all the suppliers who wanted to bid. And at the appointed day and time, these buyers were anonymized, so you couldn't see the actual names of buyer A, B, C, D. And at the appointed day and time, the bidding started. So everybody knew it was what we call a reverse auction. They knew that what we had to spend was $300,000 for this specification of devices. And they were bidding against each other, and you could see right online how the bidding went. When the bidding ended, we had saved 60%. The price point was 60% less for the number of devices we wanted than the 300,000, which meant that we could buy more than twice the number of devices on that. Now, we are now going to, this meets the world procurement standards for transparency in procurement. And we want the OECS public to see this for themselves, right? To understand the level of diligence and effort that's going into it. So we will shortly be launching the Caribbean Digital Marketplace, which brings buyers and sellers together so that they can transact business in that kind of way. If I'm a farmer and I know I'm going to have 20,000 pounds of dashing in the next 6 months, I can put that up there. Anybody who's interested, almost like a futures market. I want to buy dashing, I can bid against other people to give you the best price for your dashing. And you replicate that across the board. Our manufacturers, even services, that can be done. But we are going to be soon opening a bid on the digital platform for bidding for devices again for schools, for school kids. And we want to open that up for the public to be able to go in and see that bidding happen live. Okay, so I'm extending the invitation. The exact date and everything will be put up on our social media. You just need we'll be live streaming it, whatever. So the invitation is open. We want you to see that digital future happening before your eyes. Thank you, Governor. And thank you very much for inviting us to this dialogue.
No, thank you, Dr. Jules. That's exciting. I'm really looking forward to it, and we will help get the word out once the information is available. The digital future is now. So digital is not just the future, that future is now. And all that you've heard in the last hour and a half should make it increasingly clear to you that our region has to position itself to take advantage of this future. So I want to thank all of the panelists again for their time and availability and their contributions today. We look forward to the partnership under this project and other initiatives that are underway and that will commence in this period as we move forward with our digital transformation. We really look forward to working with all of you. And so far, the partnerships have been good. So I want to thank you very much for that. Thank you and your teams who you lead for the work that they're doing behind the scenes to enable us to be able to do these things. On my end, I'd like to thank all of my colleagues at the ECCB in the virtual room today, or the physical room, to support this broadcast. We have Ms. Shumalon Kirby, who heads our Corporate Relations Department. We have Acklin Blaise. We have Carissa Saint-Just. We have Miklas Swift, who is acting head of our Advisory Services Unit in my office. We have Alston Crawford. We have Shanna Daniel. We have Karina Phillips Summersall, Marlon Bristol, Olivia Langhorn, Iodela Roach, and I'm sure I missed one or two, but I got most of them, and I want to thank all of my colleagues for their continued support. Like I say all the time, the ECCB is your bank. We work for you. It's a privilege to serve you always, and especially in this period as we navigate this pandemic together. Finally, something I always say, and I will repeat as I close. As small states, small island development states, we cannot change our history. We cannot change our geography, but we can certainly elevate our development trajectory through digitization. Let's seize the moment.
Amen.
Let's do it together. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Stay tuned, and the next time you will join us, We'll have another round of digital transformation. The private sector's voices will be heard. The youth will be heard. We will also have a female on the panel. So stay tuned, more on that soon. Thank you very much, everyone. God bless you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.